What's happening?
They're starting to come through, and I can't stop them.
Hello, Peter.
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your friendly, least favorite YouTuber, VInfuso.
You're not Peter Parker.
And finally, it's finally happened. Call your mother, call your father, call your kids. The Spider-Man No Way Home official trailer has finally dropped. And of course, people are losing their goddamn minds. And I myself should know because I too am a people. To say this is the most hyped movie of all time isn't really that much of a hyperbole. The hype surrounding this movie about parallel universes is unparalleled. It is one of the most highly anticipated film releases of all time. What's clear is that this isn't just a movie. This is an event. This is not just the culmination of the latest Spider-Man trilogy, but a celebration of the entire cinematic Spider-Man saga. And 2 Venom movies. And 1 Doctor Strange flick. Oh, and 3 seasons of the Daredevil series. And I guess technically Captain America Civil War, and the last 2 Avenger films. You know what? Let's just say that there's a lot that led up to this, and there's a lot going on in this. Now let's get this out of the way. Before we talk about all the trailer gave us, let us first acknowledge what, or should I say who, it didn't. No, they didn't show us Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield, which I'm sure a lot of us are disappointed by. But considering the amount of leaks and reports from multiple sources, not to mention all the times that Andrew Garfield's pretty much affirmed it while attempting to deny it.
We do have to ask you about Spider-Man. Let's just end it right now. Why speculate?
You guys are really good at your jobs, but I'm better at mine. So I'm just really excited to see what happens in the 3rd one, as you guys are.
Methinks the Spider-Man doth protest too much. I think it's safe to say that they'll at least be making an appearance, which is an idea I'm personally very excited for. On top of that, I believe that this line here is a tease for what's to come.
What's happening?
They're starting to come through, and I can't stop them.
If I'm making my guess, I would say right around then is when we get the crossover we're all looking to see. The way that they've been marketing this movie, it almost feels like the real-life build-up is the movie's Act 1. Everything has been hidden under this veil of mystery, but you know, that veil is also see-through, so it's not leaving a whole lot to the imagination. For as much of a secret as this is, I think we can all admit that it's not the best kept secret.
Here's the real truth.
In my opinion, I think a lot of the secrecy behind all this is fictitious. I think the fact that there are more questions than definitive answers have led to much more intrigue and interest in this movie. I think they want us all being sleuths and playing internet detective, piecing the fragments that they give us together. I just don't believe that the vast majority of these alleged leaks are done without the consent of the company, or without purpose. There's something really special about seeing the Spider-Man from my childhood, the Spider-Man from my teenage years, and the Spider-Man from my adulthood all share a screen together. This isn't something that just always happens. Actually, come to think of it, this is something that never happens. 3 separate adaptations of this character adventuring together. Outside of a Doctor Who special, you're not going to see anything like this. Now, there's a couple things I want to note in these trailers. And yes, I will be using all the trailers up until this point in time. When Doctor Strange says,
"The problem is you trying to live 2 different lives."
He is the perfect character to make such a comment, considering both his birth name and hero name are one and the same.
I'm Peter, by the way.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, you're using your made-up names. I'm Spider-Man, then.
The guy has no secret identity. Hell, the guy has no amount of secrecy whatsoever. Outside of that, we get a much better look at Doc Ock, who looks like he hasn't aged a day in the last 20 years.
How right you are.
It seems like Doc Ock won't be taking on a full-on villainish role, nor should he, as he did die a heroic death. He sacrificed himself at the end of Spider-Man 2, which I think was an amazing arc that really redeemed the character and painted him as a good guy gone mad.
How right you are.
Although in that same respect, Sandman seemingly gave up a life of crime, and the Lizard denounced his villainous ways. He even saved Peter Parker. Come on, guys, I thought we squashed the spider beef. We also get a look at the returning Sandman, who seems to exclusively be in his final form here. We also get to see a much more comic book accurate Electro, who I think we can all agree is an all-around improvement, straight up upgrade here. And getting to see the return of the Green Goblin provided me with an instantaneous nostalgia trip. It does feel, for the lack of a better word, strange, that all the villains in this movie aren't really evil. Electro was a misunderstood, isolated, sympathetic man who couldn't find his place in the world. He didn't fit in anywhere. And due to an accident that nobody could have foreseen, that involved eels fixing the gap in his teeth, he became a walking thunderbolt. The Lizard is a brilliant doctor who lost his arm and experimented on himself, trying to grow it back, only to be turned into Killer Croc's distant cousin and be driven crazy in the process. Sandman is a petty crook who stole to support his terminally ill child and was radioactively transformed into a breathing sandcastle. And the Green Goblin, well, no, the Green Goblin is just pretty much evil. I'm also really excited to see the return of J. Jonah Jameson. And I'm pleasantly surprised to see that he's actually getting involved in the action. I kinda expected him to show up exclusively on Trons throughout the city, filming his new generation Daily Bugle show, but it's good to actually see him have some sort of role in all of this. More J.K. Simmons is not something I will ever complain about in any capacity. The spider suit we see here kinda looks like the spider armor from the comics, and also the animated series, and also this action figure I owned as a kid. Not to brag, but I just did. And speaking of outfit changes, who the hell is that? For a split second, I really thought, oh wow, we're really turning Ned Leeds into the Hobgoblin, huh? I'm told that this is a Goblin redesign, and that this is in fact supposed to be Norman Osborn. There's some concept art and behind-the-scenes pics of a stuntman that kinda confirms it. And it's not the worst thing in the world, but I gotta ask, do the villains just get together and decide, hey, new Earth, new me. Time to change it up a bit. I mean, I'm not necessarily complaining about it, I'm just questioning it. I, for one, am very much on board with the Electro redesign. I love that Electro's bolts, on occasion, resemble his mask. Because let's face it, that's about as comic book accurate as you can get with his character without turning him into a punchline. I think the thing I'm impressed with the most here is that the characters still very much feel like the characters. Yes, they're being portrayed by the same actors, which definitely helps, but they're also clearly being written by people who understood those characters in those movies. The one line of dialogue that you hear from Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin seems perfectly in tune with some of his sentiments in the very first Spider-Man movie.
You're struggling to have everything you want, while the world tries to make you choose.
In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Why bother?
Did you think it was coincidence? So many good things all happening for you, all for you.
Jamie Foxx says one thing in the trailer,
You're not gonna take this away from me.
and it's perfectly aligned with the character's mentality in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Doctor Strange mentions that all of these villains die at the hands of Spider-Man. That is their fate.
They all die fighting Spider-Man. It's their fate.
But that's not entirely true. The Green Goblin dies in a fight against Peter. So, sure, that checks out. Even if he did technically actually die at his own hands.
The blade that pierced his body came from his glider.
I'll give you that one. Doc Ock sacrificed himself after a fight with Peter, so I wouldn't really count that one, but if you're desperate, sure, go ahead and take it. Spider-Man does defeat Electro in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Fine, it's yours. But the Sandman doesn't die. I mean, there's a fake out earlier on, but by the end of it, the two patch things up and go their separate ways. And sure, Sandman becomes dust in the wind, but he doesn't become dust in the wind. And the Lizard doesn't die either. Actually, come to think of it, he and Spider-Man end on pretty good terms too. And after Strange makes that statement, Peter disagrees and defies his interim mentor. I imagine Peter's so hard up on this fact because he's already feeling guilty about having killed Mysterio in the last movie. On top of that, now he learns that his other-world counterparts are responsible for killing multiple tragically transformed people with horrible origin stories. What I'm really loving about this so far is the amount of consequence there is following Spider-Man Far From Home. Some of the time Marvel introduce big plot points that either instantly resolve, or are kinda watered down when it comes for the reveal. In the MCU, hiding one's identity seems much more taxing than having it revealed.
I am Iron Man.
But here we see that there's some serious backlash. When Peter is revealed to the world, his world changes. And then soon after, the world changes. There's one scene in the trailer specifically that I really need to highlight, and it's the obligatory girlfriend potentially falling to her death scene. You know the one that we've seen in every live-action Spider-Man movie series ever made. Happened to MJ in Spider-Man, happened to Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and now in the third Spider-Man home film, it's happening to the other MJ. I want to point out that the way that this plays out is almost identical to Gwen Stacy's death from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And it looks very intentional. So I'm thinking that this may be where we see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man spring into action. It would be nice seeing him get a second chance at saving a life. And considering that there's a whole lot of scaffolding here, tell me, where does this leak look like it takes place? What I find really interesting is that when Spider-Man 3 came out, it was a travesty. Everyone was disappointed, and the reason most often cited is that there was too much going on. You have Harry become the Goblin, you have Mr. Sandman entering the picture, you have the birth and death of Venom, and then you have the issues going on in Peter's love life. Then there was The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It came out, and it was a travesty. Everyone was disappointed, and the reason often cited is that there was too much going on. You have Harry becoming the Goblin, you have Electro lighting up the scene, you have a side plot with the Rhino, and then you have the issues going on in Peter's love life. Oh, and the Black Cat and Alistair Smythe were also there. And yet with this movie, it's because there's so much going on here that people are so excited about it. Spider-Man, Venom, Daredevil, Spider-Man, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Sandman, Spider-Man, Electro, the Lizard? Yeah, sign me up! In actuality, I don't think the reason those other Spider-Man movies aren't looked at as fondly is because there's too much going on. I think they're shown less love because of the way the projects handled all of those things at once. But Marvel and the MCU have already proven to us time and time again that they can seamlessly juggle and interweave plots with ease. So we know the Spider-Man brand is in good hands. And we know that this kind of spectacle left to anyone else wouldn't be as spectacular, or amazing, or ultimate. It would just be Spider-Man to the third power. I'm gonna make a bold two-part prediction right here, though. I think this movie will end one of two ways. The less likely being that they end this leaving a hole in the multiverse, or maybe accidentally emerge in the multiverse, leading to the MCU introduction of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. But what I think would be much more likely, considering that as of right now, this is the last movie Sony and Marvel are contracted to do together, and Sony still has many more projects in the works utilizing characters like the Vulture from the MCU, I think this movie may end with Spider-Man essentially getting his own universe. A Spider-Verse, if you will. A universe in which all the events from Spider-Man's time in the MCU happened, and it's canon, but a universe that is separate and not tied down to everything that was done in the MCU. A universe perhaps in which both the original two Spider-Men exist, and most importantly, a universe in which the Morbius movie takes place. I also think it's possible this movie is being used as a reset. Maybe the film ends with that spell that kicked things off properly going into effect. Considering that we do see MJ put in danger numerous times in this trailer alone, it does stand to reason that Peter may change his mind about letting her in on a secret, after realizing the harm he puts her in by doing so. You know, that whole great power, great responsibility stuff. But then again, seeing as this movie will undoubtedly turn a bigger profit than any Spider-Man movie to date, well, I think there's a pretty good chance Disney won't want to lose its Marvel mascot. I mean, really, who else they got now? Captain America's old, Thor's fat, Iron Man's dead, Black Panther's dead for real, and Captain Marvel has all the personality of a drywall. So I'm sure in no way, shape, or form is this a final goodbye to Tom Holland in the role. Not to mention, this isn't the first time Disney almost had to say goodbye to their friendly neighborhood cash cow. What's really interesting is that these trailers portray the movie as being both a Spider-Man movie and a Doctor Strange movie, which is a pretty unique blend and also a bold choice on the part of those in charge. There's a lot that I'm excited for here. But there's also the question of what's being edited for this trailer. Of course, in general, trailers and teasers always consist of editors piecing together audio from separate scenes. So you don't really know what's being said or when it's being said and to who and what the context is. You're just getting spark notes. So anytime you deal with a trailer, you're dealing with that. But then when it comes to Marvel, all bets are off. Marvel is famous for adding scenes only intended for trailers to throw audiences off their trail, or editing characters out of scenes entirely to shock audiences in theaters when they see those characters there. So who knows how deceptive this trailer is? Personally, this one scene here, this strikes me as a scene that may have a Spider-Man or two edited out, for a couple of reasons. For one, who is the lizard jumping at here? This Spider-Man isn't in his line of sight. And follow-up question, what is he getting knocked out by right here? Right now, my goal is to hit every Spider-Man movie leading into Spider-Man No Way Home. We're talking about the Raimi films, we're talking about the Webb films, the MCU movies with him, the Venom movies, maybe even Doctor Strange, I don't know. And if that's something you guys are interested in, let me know in the comment section below by saying, go into the Spider-Verse. Anyway, with all that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, VInfuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the theaters.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was VInfuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.